Okay then. Arkathor got rigged. Arkathor's had like 2 coaching the minis already, so you can deal. You can cope. Okay, are we ready? I think I'm ready. Are you guys ready? Hopefully you're ready. Let's get the show on the road. Let's start saying hello to YouTube guys, and yeah, we'll start with the intro. Welcome to Overwatch, and welcome to a sort of impromptu, well, not impromptu, out of sorts coaching the mini episode. It's a Sunday, it's usually on a Saturday, but because I was doing Scrim Central yesterday, I was exhausted and tired, so I had to run off and do something else, like sleep for a while. So I've decided, well, let's move coaching the mini to today, because we really want to talk about coaching the mini. We really want to do some coaching stuff. Today we're going to be focusing on a silver level game. You can see it in the background. I think Snippy is the man that we will be coaching. And this poor lad played just about every single hero under the sun during this game. It was crazy. It's crazy how many heroes he played. So we're going to focus this, like refocus this and talk more about Numbani than sort of the actual stuff going on. Talk about how to defend it, or at least how standard defenses sort of work on Numbani on ladder at the very least, and maybe dip a little bit into sort of how it's changing on the pro scene, because that tends to trickle down a little bit, but not too much. And then let's talk about, you know, then the situations that arise from there. So let's talk about, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and outline how it normally works, or at least how the standard works. And then it's sort of more, hey, this is what this guy's doing, this is where this is weak, this is perhaps the weakness going on here, so on, so on, so on. Okay, let's go.
We'll have an attack first round this time.
There we go, let's turn down some of the communications. He is in a 4-stack. I will say, like, if you're playing at sort of silver gold level, I imagine 4-stacking isn't too bad of an idea, like, or at least at the very least triple stacking. When you get higher and higher and higher, what tends to happen is the penalty. So, okay, actually let me explain this, because a lot of people do try and optimize sort of how they gain MMR. So this is, I don't know, skill. Let's try and write this properly. Skill, and then rank, I guess.
Welcome to Overwatch, mon chéri.
Okay.
If you can't beat the cancer, then be the cancer.
Okay, Delphanu. That's quite a statement. Thank you for the resub though. Enjoy the shiny red icon. Welcome. So this is like 500, 1k, 1.5, so on, whatever. So the idea is this. So you might think that skill and skill rating sort of do this, and are sort of like a straight line, where it just rises up as a linear progression. I really don't think that's the case. I really do not think that's the case. I think, honestly, it's more like this, where skill starts out incredibly low, and then, honestly, probably just sort of starts to plateau a lot around here. And then it will steadily increase in rate of growth, and increase and increase and increase, and I've drawn this graph way wrong, but you get the idea. And then when you start getting towards sort of, okay, ignore the bottom axis, this is bullshit. This is sort of where you start to get towards I'd say like 3.8, 3.94k. You start to see this dramatic spike going up. But as long as you are around the middle and around the median, you can honestly bounce back and forth quite a lot. And as long as you're playing relatively competently, you don't see too much of a difference. It's more just in terms of how people react to group stuff, especially like around platinum gold level. Usually it's how people react to opportunities and how they seize upon those opportunities and see those opportunities. That's usually the big change I find. So when you are 4-stacking or 3-stacking at a low or middle MMR, you basically, to balance it out, the game will try and either put you against a stack of similar size and skill, or it will bump up the rating of the enemy team slightly. You can imagine if the enemy team gains 200 rating and it's down here, that's a lot less of a jump than if it's 200 rating and it's up here, which is why you pretty much never see anything more than a duo stack when you start getting into Masters, Grandmasters. Very, very rare to start seeing anything more than that, unless it is a stack of pros where, you know, there's just no competition for them to actually face, so they don't really give a shit. But yeah, so I'd say triple stacking is probably ideal, less so the quad stacking, because if you quad stack, sometimes these soloers can get very antsy and get very angry, and then just start throwing, because they feel like such a minority or such a weak force. Whereas if you're a triple stack, you have a lot of control over the game. You're still playing with friends, you're still able to coordinate with them, you know what they can do. All that kind of stuff, it works out quite nicely. Looks like it's tried to balance it out, I think, going up against 2 double stacks. And that's sort of how the game's trying to work it out. We're starting out on the Winston. Winston, actually extremely good on the first point on Numbani. He's pretty much become standard fare. First point Numbani, more so than Reinhardt. Reasons why is pretty simple, okay? If we think about the first point of Numbani, the way that at least I think of it is it's just like an enclosed arena. It's like a donut almost. Where you got the point in the middle and then you got this ring around it. So if we actually go back a couple of frames, get a good overview. There we go. This is sort of what I want to talk about. So you can see like this is the juicy donut filling, which is the point, and then you have all of this high ground area around it to play around with, okay? And so you have so many different places where you can defend from and so many different places where people can attack to that being able to move around and jump around and be mobile is actually really, really useful. You also very nicely have sort of, this is one of the main access routes that teams conventionally tend to go through if they're playing like a very balled up team that doesn't really dive. They generally just all push through here. And so what you generally see is, well, Winston can just hold here. And you can use this wall for cover and just poke around it. And anytime they're trying to go through here, they're all taking 50, 60 damage per second trying to get through it. A barrier's not going to stop that damage coming in. It just tightens up the choke point, makes it very difficult for them to push out there. So Winston can control that. And then if they do go for an aggro dive, it's very easy for you to reposition and go over here. Or it's easy for you to reposition necessarily on the point. You can do all this mobility stuff with Winston that is super, super, super vital. Now, conventional defense. Like, let's get started here. There's going to be a lot of drawing, a lot of talking during the start of this at the very least. You generally see teams split in half, so you usually have about half the team over on this side and then half the team over here, or at least one or two members of the team. My personal favorite is having a Soldier 76 and an Anna just hanging out over here, because the Soldier 76 has good sight lines onto where most teams dive into, and if they do dive the Soldier 76 and Anna over here, all they need to do is grenade themselves, like get the grenade on both of them. Soldier 76 puts his heal field down, and that's 100 heals per second on, well, it's 75 heals per second on both of them, which is actually quite difficult to sort of get past for a lot of teams. During that time, your team can then peel around or can then do something about it. Winston, for example, can very easily bounce over and come help out. More people can come and help deal with the dive. Sometimes you'll see teams run like Divas, for example, as well, which are going to be very mobile. Mobility is very, 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 very important here on Numbani. The ability to sort of move around very freely, and you generally have a lot of options if they try and do this full dive. You can generally, you know, people can just shoot out from over here and just get the kills over here, and then these people over here can try and survive for as long as possible. The worst thing you can try and do is just try and like have everyone over here, because then you're sort of just clumped into one place, and if they do smash through, which is sort of what they need to try and do, then you're just going to lose. Having someone over here just makes it incredibly difficult, where they can't just go onto the point because then they're going to get shot at. They can't just push out onto the high ground. They have to try and contest that soldier, and if they don't, they're going to have a huge amount of issues. Now, with the team lineup we have, if you press this tab, it'll be nice. You can see that no one is getting set up over here. Very important to do. Also, I do like the fact that people are breaking all these little annoying barriers, because if you don't, you're inevitably going to shoot into them and going to have problems. Mercy's not so bad here. She can sort of bounce around a little bit. Widowmaker, I'm not as keen on the first point. She's great second point Numbani. She's absolutely fucking superb second point Numbani. First point Numbani, she has a bit of a problem because the sightlines aren't actually as long as you think, and if you are trying to get a long sightline, you're generally extremely exposed, very easy to dive onto, very easy to kill. And attacking teams these days on Numbani are pretty much universally running dive comps. It's very rare that you get these Reinhardt comps just sort of brute forcing through the doorway and just pushing straight in. So you want to be careful about that. I really don't like the Reaper. Hate the Reaper. Because, again, if they just ignore this pathway, like, Reaper is fucking superb. When Reaper is good, Reaper is fucking amazing at what he does. What he does is he kills shit at close range. If the enemy isn't close range, though, he's goddamn useless. He's true one-trick pony. If the enemy team does not come through here, this Reaper is going to be completely useless. There's just nothing he can do. They'll just all dive over this way, and just sort of go, that was a terrible arrow, but they'll all go over that way and then not give a shit, basically. The Zarya, I think, is alright, because she can bubble all over the place and just sort of protect people. No matter what happens, you can just bubble people as they get dove, and just easy. In Silver, are they really going to run dive? Yes. Oh yeah, people run all sorts. It might not be an effective dive, it might not be a coordinated dive, but they'll still run aggressive clumps. They can also run a pharmacy. And pharmacy is actually pretty strong on Numbani. There's a lot of different angles you can take, a lot of different angles that they can push through, and they can get a lot done. You can see they're already going onto this back line, and now we have a slightly split focus. One thing I would say is, like, this bubble feels just a touch too early. I think the Reaper also just overextended it a little bit. So you just want to hold tight to this corner, and then the Reaper really can't afford to poke too hard in there. He's very lucky he didn't get hooked and killed, so he has to back away. We put the bubble down. And honestly, I would just like to bait them just in a step or two more just to get a little bit of shock damage. But once the Mercy actually makes a mistake here, which he actually comes over and lands over here, I'm fine with us peeling away and going for the jump on her, because then we can just eliminate that instantaneously. But you notice now these isolated figures, well, I think the Pharah... Actually, how did the soldier get to her? How did the soldier find the Widow so quickly? I'm guessing just the lack of front line, the triple tank, or the double tank just pushed through it and just won. So the Reaper didn't even deter the tanks, basically. Not scared at all. And then something very strange happens. Something very, very strange happens here. So there's a realization that Winston might not be hugely effective here if they've got a Roadhog, if they've got a Pharmacy. Okay, it's going to be a little bit of a tough time for the Winston. So there's a swap into the Soldier 76. This has left the team without a tank. This worries me. To me, the logical switch here would have been something like a Reinhardt, and you just stand, like... To me, okay, let's talk about the ideal situation here. Is the first point just gets lost pretty much instantly. So actually, there's the team lineup. What would I change to beat this? Well, to me, like, this is just blatantly not going to be able to do much because they're going to be playing heavily around these two. So the Pharmacy is going to be doing most of the grunt work here. They're going to be pushing forward, getting kills on stuff, and just trying to seize the initiative while the rest of the team just stays near the point and pushes forward. Reaper is not going to do anything because the D.Va is there. And the D.Va can just block anything that Reaper tries to do. Like, Reaper's going to have a hard time. Soldier 76 can also just stay on the point and just shoot at anything that gets near. They're going to have a really tough time to do anything on the Reaper. Nix the Reaper, put Reaper on Reinhardt. Then you can go on Soldier, or put Reaper on Soldier and you can go Reinhardt. Either way works. Why go Soldier Reinhardt? Because, in theory, the Widowmaker can nail these two, but it's extremely difficult for the Widow to do so. So having an extra hit scan just to provide extra support to keep these guys busy will be able to put enough pressure out, maybe to slow down the Pharmacy a lot. Then they have no barriers otherwise. So having that consistent source of damage in the Soldier 76, you put your barrier up, Soldier 76 just keeps shooting at the enemy team. D.Va's going to run out of defense matrix eventually. You're going to start landing shots, you're going to start getting kills, you can push forward. Also, when you get Earthshatter, nothing to stop Earthshatter at all. You could just Earthshatter this team for days. So there's a lot of opportunities to get stuff done here with the Reinhardt. The danger of running without the Reinhardt is the Pharmacy's rockets. If the Pharmacy is good, the Pharmacy will just keep landing rockets, and they will just keep getting these like 150 damage shots in that will just keep annihilating the team, especially if there's a Discord orb, so the Mercy could just die any second now. Without having anything to cover it, a D.Va would also be okay, but I'd rather have like a Reinhardt and a D.Va or just something else to shore that up. That would work a lot better. I'd say the D.Va will work fine as well. It just, again, stops all the rockets, slows down the DPS coming in. This is where Widowmaker can start to shine, though. This is actually a very, very nice point for Widowmaker. We used to see this a hell of a lot back when there was a Widowmaker meta, that Widowmakers would literally just dominate this. I remember this being Reaver's playground all that time ago. Also, Too Easy used to get a lot done here. Just because you can generally just start over here if you're on offense and you just sort of push forward on all the little high ground spots. And honestly, I think from around here you can see quite far into the point, like through the point, and then opposite's true for the other team as well. You can see extremely long distances. You get kind of lucky in terms of, I wouldn't say lucky, you know, let's give the Widowmaker player some credit, where the Widowmaker player gets a pick and, okay, now it's time to push aggressively, because they've just lost a major source of DPS. This would be so much easier if you had a tank of some sort, by the way, just to advance forward. Does a Soldier 76 shooting, just need to lead the target a touch more just to get that rocket in. Just anticipate that he's going back for cover and he's going to sprint back for cover. Fine with this motion, just fine with us setting up near the point. Putting down the heal field, because assuming we're going to be around there, and honestly, I'm okay with us going even aggressive onto this Mercy. Maybe a little over-aggressively, we don't need to be this close. So there's no reason why we shouldn't just be able to shoot this, and honestly, this to me is just like the easiest rocket in the world. Just because she's going to be near that, relatively near that position for a little while, like there's nothing she can really jump to, and if she does jump to it, then we can follow it up. Bit of a shame that the giveaway sign is, and knowing my luck, the rocket will probably go right here, but hey, feels bad, man. So we can definitely just get rid of this Mercy. Find the target selection, absolutely the correct one. No reason, by the way, why we shouldn't have just shot that right at her feet. Sort of over-anticipating and over-complicating our lives here, where if we just aim it here, we're at least getting damage guaranteed on the Mercy, no matter what she does. There's no option for her that's very good. Also, that's a very good circle I've just drawn. I'm impressed with myself. So just putting it underneath the Mercy would have been fine. Just to guarantee that damage. Coffee. I can see people saying Zarya D.Va. The problem with Zarya D.Va is that if the Pharmacy just plays high and far away, the Zarya doesn't really get to do anything. She can soak up a lot of bubbles, she can do a lot with the bubbles and get high charge barriers, but she's not going to be able to actually challenge the Pharmacy at all. The Pharmacy will just kill stuff. you need stuff that can actually challenge it, and you need stuff to accommodate that challenging. So if you just put a Reinhardt Reinhardt barrier over the Soldier 76, the Pharmacy cannot engage that directly. They'd have to blow through the barrier steadily, and it gives you some space to go and do stuff with. And if the Pharmacy's trying to do that, then they're not also worrying about the Widowmaker, which could cause them real problems. And like I said as well, our shadows for days. It's a greedy justice from their team, especially with a Widowmaker. I have no idea where our Widow is. I think she's just stood back over here, maybe?
I'm gonna grab.
So, easiest shot in the world. Graviton goes out. Nothing really combos with it, but it does get Transcendence. And this, to me, is like where there's sort of the first, I would guess, like, super obvious major mistake, where we're not repositioning aggressively. So, there's a cool thing with Ultimate Economy. Like, let's talk about Ultimate Economy, let's talk about how to manage ultimates. So we've used a major ultimate, right? We used a big ultimate, we used Transcendence, we used Graviton Surge, they used Transcendence to counter it. Makes sense, simple, very, very cost effective. Good for the Zenyatta. Transcendence generally builds a lot faster than Grav, so good economy for the Zenyatta. But what this means is it's very unlikely that they're going to have something else to follow it up with, so all you really need is one good ultimate to follow. Now, I am fine with us peeling back because this Reaper, if you watch his behavior, go blue, this Reaper is very obviously running forward to try and get a Death Blossom. If you just watch how he behaves, like when I was watching this, I was going, okay, you know, we need to do something off the back of this trance because there's an absolutely huge opportunity here. They probably have res as well, so we want to be a little bit careful about that. The Reaper runs forward, okay, he's very clearly going for an ultimate. What this signals to me, though, is also that we should be setting up in case that falls through, or in case the res does go off, or setting up ourselves in some kind of position where we can do something. So I would honestly be fine with us winging around here and playing more to the side using the car as cover. I'd be a little bit leery of getting too close to the edge in case the Pharmacy gets clever and just knocks you off, which could be a problem. But generally, you want to be playing somewhere nearby, and you want to use the Visor as sort of a fallback plan, basically. Because, okay, Grav's gone in, they've used Transcendence. Fair enough. If we then put Death Blossom in, and they use Resurrect and get everyone back up in case Mercy doesn't die, for example, then okay, fair enough. And then we can really win the fight by just putting Tac Visor in, clean them all out. They use 2 support ults, we use 3 offensive ultimates. We still have our support ultimate, so we have time to build back up, and we'll be absolutely fine. Because the danger is when you lose control of this point, you can really lose control of second point Numbani. Once it starts snowballing, it starts getting crazy. What we end up doing is we end up falling quite far back. The Reaper, unsurprisingly to anyone, doesn't get anything done. The D.Va just eats it all up, or just ate it all up, or just killed the Reaper by the looks of things, which is insane to me. Which might mean that we needed to capitalize a bit more on this, I don't know. I'm guessing the D.Va just bowed a time, and then, yeah. So that's all the defense matrix gone as well, and then maybe we could have got something done here, but now we're in trouble. It's also, by the way, where an Earth Shadow would have been good. Ah! Team is stabilizing, but this is now definitely a lost fight, as you guys are dead. Stop blaming and play properly. I've been listening to the comms, but any blaming that's been happening, enemy team is playing right, enemy team is playing smoothly. So it's more the bigger problem. That's a problem that we need to be careful about. Call it out, which is nice. These guys should definitely be pulling back, and we should be setting up for the next, like for the next phase, which is usually around this corner. So we want to actually be setting up here and getting these guys to pull out. What is nice is that this stalling happening on the point is that the payload hasn't really moved. Like it's still on that main street, which that's actually good for us because we got back. So the team's done a good job so far. We don't really want to challenge this, even though his hook's already down. Basically, the Reaper can't lose that one-on-one. If he does, then you have problems. Because now we're in a lot of trouble. He's just dropped down, lands a hook, lands a shot, lands a follow-up shot, no problem. And now it's really bad. Honestly, we had a couple of choices here that we could have made. And I think we made like the worst one, which is just do nothing. So we know that the Roadhog's up here. We know that we can't really challenge him without a little bit of support. Like, a little bit of support makes it possible to do. The worst thing to do is just to stay in here. I think we forgot that there's a ledge above us where he can just drop down, which is kind of what he does. We have 2 choices right now. Okay, choice A is to run out here. Let's go back to the red. So run out this way and try and get behind the enemy team, put attack visor out and try and kill people. The problem with point A is that they have a D.Va. So until you kill the D.Va, that plan isn't going to work. D.Va just turns around, puts defense matrix up. Unless you get right into the enemy Mercy's bomb hole and then just open the attack visor there and kill her, it's not really going to work. You're going to have to deplete the defense matrix or get rid of the mech to be able to actually do something with that. Choice B is to just run back towards our team. Run over towards our team, just set up naturally for the second point. Maybe get onto the high ground balcony so you can contest the Roadhog from a medium distance. I think that will work quite nicely if you go just up the stairs over that way. Camera keeps changing. If you go up the stairs over this way and just stay on the high ground back here, just try and contest the Roadhog off the high ground, make sure he can't really do much there, put pressure on until the rest of your team regroups, and then hold on the second corner. I think that will work a lot better. Quick coffee slurp. Because you notice if we're being aggressive like that as well, like we're never in a position to actually use this tack visor, which could be pivotal. And they just end up rolling through and get second point. Part of this is also like no tanks, so there's nothing stopping the hook coming through. They can just, Roadhog can just do kind of whatever he likes, and he's just advancing forward, landing hooks and stuff. Want to be careful about challenging him, especially if he's got a Mercy with him, which he does. Most of our teams come up. Now we can definitely challenge him. Now we want to go aggro. Push, 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 push. Get the kill. Good job. If you're on a point, don't do what I think you're going to do here, which is drop down and instantly tack visor. Yeah. Okay. Feels bad, man. So, let's talk about... First of all, let's just briefly mention like second point hold. So first things first, you normally start holding around the bus area here, okay? And you normally just start setting up here, and it's mostly just a poke battle just to try and claw back some momentum and try and get everything set up. So most of your defending is usually going to happen around here. You sometimes want someone on the higher ground, but in general, most of your fighting is going to be happening here. Second phase Numbani is very difficult to defend. Like, you are generally just playing for time and trying to bait out as many big ultimates as possible. You're generally trying to set up for a good third point defense and just trying to stop the bleeding from the first point. If you can get out, usually if, you know, they've been winning team fights over here, if they won a shitload of team fights on first point and they're moving forward for second point, you generally want to try and get rid of as many of their ultimates as possible, using as few as possible of yours, if they are really motoring. Like, your idea is to just try and burn out any ult economy that they've built up, basically. So, how do we do that? You try and just set up a simple defense here, but honestly, do not be afraid to just pull back and just right back to here, because when you start getting here, you now have a spawn advantage. Your spawns are actually really nice as well, and that you can come out onto this high ground very easily as well and start contesting it from the high ground as Soldier 76, for example, or, you know, Pharmacy can get out up here and whatever. You can do a lot of stuff involving high ground if you're playing around it very well. You have a lot of options in terms of how to reinforce this area, and it's actually quite a big open space for the enemy team to attack into, and once they start contesting the point as well, especially if you have a Reinhardt, once again, you can just shatter over the point very easily. And I think this payload might be low enough. Not 100% sure, but this payload might be low enough for you to shatter people on top of it, as long as they're not on top of the actual Doomfist itself. You could probably still knock people over with that. I'd imagine that's not 2 meters or more, like the King's Row one is, which is like a big cylinder. This is more like a thing like this. And if they're stood on these bits, then you could probably still shatter them. Feels good, man. The danger with doing this is that they have been running a D.Va, so it's a bit scary. Once you have done this, I think you made a huge error in just not tunneling the Mercy. Genji's hitting us, so what? First thing Genji will do is deflect. And you can generally sort of use this as like a way of baiting up the deflect, and then you can just kill him after it's done. But I think the biggest mistake here is just turning, like, there is a juicy, plump, ripe Mercy there, okay? A juicy, thick Mercy. Kill the goddamn Mercy. Because she's going to have res. I haven't seen a res yet. She's going to have it. So even if you kill everybody, she's still going to do it. Also, just understand that after you've landed the first shot onto, like, ideally, if you're going to tank visor, just turn, shoot the Genji once or twice, and then turn away, because he's just going to instantly deflect. Genjis are actively, if they're playing properly, generally actively looking to get into your face and block as much as possible of the visor. It's one of the best things that they can do. So if you're going to get into the back like this, make sure you are targeting very quickly, drilling down onto the supports. Because if you are not, then stuff like the D.Va can come in and save them, the Zarya can come in and save them. You've got to try and utilize as much burst as possible. And hey, Reinhardt. Okay. Like I said, this man swaps a lot of heroes, so I can specific this hero. That's a Dragon Strike. Oh, I'm going to Sound Barrier. And actually, I'm fine with this while the Sound Barrier is up, just beating the shit out of this D.Va and getting rid of it. That said, I don't like the fact that we jump back. So, if you're beating the shit out of a D.Va, and the Diva mech starts exploding, you want to stay inside, like, as close to the mech as possible, because if you think of your hammer arc, it's like a 180-degree arc in front of you, and while the Diva is actually exploding out of it, you will hit the Diva, just due to the way that the Diva break happens. Once the mech starts exploding, very soon after, the Diva is actually spawned, like the Diva, baby Diva, Zero Suit Diva is spawned inside, and then will get jettisoned out. And while she's being jettisoned out, you can very easily get the first hit on her, and she will usually get pulled in, sort of around you, so you can get the second swing in very easily and just kill Diva pretty much immediately. So once the mech starts exploding, just hit it again, you will get the Diva on the way out, and then just hit once more, and you will kill her. If she gets knocked away, that first hit just means that you just have to land a fire strike, which... it's a little bit tricky, but not impossible. Usually has predictable pathing. Usually not too bad. I was so hyped because, okay, if you're playing Reinhardt, every Reinhardt has been here, every Reinhardt has done this. You charge, and for some reason the target gets bumped. But there is enough time here for us to course correct, and the idea isn't so much to target the Diva, it's just to cross paths with the Diva, because if you do that, then you will just scoop her up on the way there. When you bump someone like this, just adjust inwards towards them a little bit, and you will actually find that you can catch them. And it makes you look really fucking cool when you do it. It's a bit unfortunate that we don't manage to do so. Hey, we get her anyway, and now we're in trouble. Now this is a feels bad man situation. Luckily, like, honestly, this is a actually feels good man situation. It's a little bit scary, because, you know, they're all advancing on us, but they just used sound barrier for literally no fucking reason. I don't know why they've sound barriered here. Lucio got nervous. Lucio had a crush on Diva, maybe. I don't know. But they wanted to save the Diva, I guess. Even though most of your team's already dead, you are completely surrounded. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the picture of a dead Reinhardt. The best you can do here is you can just smack across their team, maybe get some ultimate charge out of it, or put a fire strike through and get some ultimate charge, but honestly, at this point, you are playing for time, you are dead. There's no surviving this, there's no winning this fight. So I'm fine with us just throwing a fire strike out, put a barrier up, play for as much time as possible, there's just nothing we can do about that, but honestly, we just gained about, judging by the fact there's 4 characters there, 2,400 damage, basically, because they use the sound barrier for no reason. And now, hey, look, wouldn't the sound barrier be nice? And then we swap to Mercy. Now, if we are doing a desperate last-minute contest, maybe it's just Reaper typed in all caps, where is Mercy? I don't think that was a signal for you to swap to Mercy. It's an interesting swap, it's an interesting choice on the last minute contest. So the idea is that we're trying to contest now, we're trying to stall as much as possible. Conventional picks will be stuff like Diva, Mei, Tracer would also be fine, just to get out there that much quicker and just reinforce that much quicker. But hey, we've got out there as Mercy, and hey, we actually managed to, like, the team just managed to win it outright on their own, which, oh the fucking Luya, Reaper's gone in and just shot things at close range and killed everything. Who knew it actually works and does something. And now we're on the Mercy. Okay, and now we have a Mei, and it's all gone crazy. It's all gone a bit mad. Okay, let's talk about conventional third-point defenses, because this is anything but conventional. So, first things first, transition to second point to third point. Second point usually ends messily. Usually ends very messily. You usually don't have too much sort of time to regroup over here. Usually the final fight of second point happens right on the point, and usually you will get cleared off it, you'll get wiped off it, and then they'll start pushing forward. You generally have a bit of time to play around with, so that's actually quite nice. So you usually want to try and stabilize around this tree, around this corner. If you can stabilize around here, that gives you options to push back and forth, and then the fight really starts to begin over here as they try and muscle through this corner. You just got to keep your eye out in case anything comes up here, or in case anything tries to wrap all the way around. Tracer and Pharmacy especially like to do that. Genji's, I think, usually more endemic, are coming out up here and trying to cause problems. So you don't have to worry too much about that. Like, if they are popping out there and just trying to move around, honestly, your first priority has to just be to regroup. Very standard team lineups work here. Stuff that is a bit stodgy but durable. Works very nicely. Dive can work if you can play it well, but it's dive. Welcome to the dive meta. Say Reinhardt does very well here. Rodok can do very well here in just controlling the corners. There's just a lot of places where you can just poke back and forth here. People generally get very stuck up, like very stuck in the sort of narrowness of the road here. As it starts coming around the corner, the payload creates a very nice natural choke point for you to play around and do a lot with. Zarya actually works very well here as well. It's just a lot of poking back and forth, so you can absorb a lot of damage. Feels pretty good. Lord 76, standard, simple, works quite effectively. I'd say you could even, like, if you're feeling frisky, you could run McCree and just sort of bounce between the close areas here and just try and control the mid-range as they try and move through here. Could work quite nicely. Heroes to avoid, say Winston, like, if you aren't running an aggressive dive, if you aren't just looking to go and outright kill them, you have places to hold, but I just think it's, like, if you're standing here and trying to hold as Winston, then they're just going to stand over here and just come around the corner and shoot you. Whereas if you're standing here and playing as Roadhog, it works a lot better because then you have mid-range combat and they just get slowed down and caught in the little areas. Other than that, a lot works. Zenyatta actually worked quite well here as well. There's just a lot of little nooks and crannies for you to play around with. Reaper, still don't think it works. I remain unconvinced. This is 5 people peeling away for a single corner, and now just leaving poor Reaper on his lonesome. Luckily he's Reaper, he doesn't give a shit. And now let's coach them Mercy. Feels bad, man. Feels double bad, man. Feels mega ultra super bad, man. They just threw every ultimate on the planet at you. Unless Mei is a god, that's GG. Jesus Christ. I will highlight that I think it is worth mentioning that the play as we came out of the door, this was fine.
On the point.
So coming out here and just putting damage amp on is fine. Then you notice, hey, there's a Genji. And we're standing at the back. Genji kills McCree. But then he just starts irritating us, and then we just dash over and just tuck into our team. Honestly, this pull back over here is a little bit unnecessary. Like, you could just tuck around the front of the payload, around the other side of the payload, away from the Genji, and if Genji wants to engage you, then he has to come into the team, and then this happens. So that was fine. In before, no res. Well, considering we've been swapping every 2 seconds, of course there's no res. This is also the disadvantage of where we're trying to just constantly swap like this, and we're not even swapping in a uniform, predictable way, we're just swapping to all sorts of different characters, which I think isn't necessarily working to our advantage here. The fact that we do have like mono support on the Lucio isn't great, so that did need filling and someone had to do it. But honestly, staying on the Reinhardt wouldn't necessarily be too evil here. Especially if, like, considering we had a fight not too long ago where we could get some ult charge up. If we go back. So we come out here, they use all these resources, we get a nice 30% off the D.Va. 40%, and then if you just get a hammer swing and a fire strike in here across all these people, you could get some really nice ult charge going. Reinhardt's very, very good at these final point contests as well. Like, he can clear the point extremely efficiently, but just by killing people. He can stall for the point for an extremely long time. So I don't necessarily agree with the swap here. I think someone had to swap, but I don't think it was you on the Reinhardt. Reinhardt ult does not affect people on top of the Doomfist container. Yeah. Does it affect people next to the Doomfist container? Yeah, I think on top of the Doomfist container is high enough, but I think, like, on the areas around it, maybe not on that, like, if... So if you look at the cart here, I imagine, like, not in sort of these areas, you know, just to draw a penis. Not on top of here, but on top of here, probably you can make it work. I imagine, like, on this silver area, you could probably still get people. That's a sad nerf to it. It is a sad nerf to it. I think that's a really sad nerf. I actually like the Reinhardt. I like Reinhardt being able to clear payloads like that. It was super important to me. It's very important to me. And this is just them throwing 1, 2, 3, maybe even more, 4 probably ults. Yeah. Everything but the support ults, basically. And because your support, I think, swapped onto Roadhog, or your second support swapped onto Roadhog, and the Lucio didn't have sound barrier, there's no victory.
Oh well.
Oh well, it's called. Switching sides. Actually, let's have a look at the time. 1 minute 32, that's actually not too bad. You can do a first point hold and just basically win. So let's have a look at the offensive. See what the team's picking. And this is why, if you looked at the tweet that went out